you're going to be here live, you can react. Just hit the react button, choose an emoji, and press send. Or you can hit the react button, choose an emoji, and text a question or a message to me. And my producer will let me know who wrote it and what it says. So the show will be starting in just a few moments, and I will see you soon. Well, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome. I'm saying a lot of welcomes, right? So here we go. We're going to get it started. Welcome to Poetic People Fighting Racism, double PFR. I'm your host, Anthony Cordova, Tony C., the man about love. I'm also the co-host of I'm Right, where I have the privilege to be in a show with my beautiful, with my intelligent, with my incredibly gifted wife, Jill Cox Cordova, right here on Fireside. Here at Double PFR, we discuss racism and the caste system in the United States of America through poetry, through art, through music, using the voices of our souls, using the strength of our ancestors to heal the fractured country we live in and die in. Here at Double PFR, all souls are welcome, all people are welcome. Welcome to discuss the racism we live in. Come on in. We'll put our arms around you, providing a safe place for you, a home to protect you, a place where you're surrounded by hope, where you're surrounded by compassion, where you're surrounded by empathy, forgiveness, and love. Surrounded by love, surrounded by so much love. I'd love for you to come in with me, to stand by me, to see what we can do to change this country, to change the people that live in this country. I welcome you to Double PFR with love, with so much love. Double PFR. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am glad to see everyone in the audience. It's good to see you there. I see Dave and Sam, I believe, and Lily. Oh, it's really good to see you too, Lily. Okay, so we're going to get the show started. But before I do the poem of the night, which is called They Say, I want to talk to everyone there about, everyone that's in the audience, about action, about taking action, and what can we do to take action on whatever it may be. Whenever I'm faced with a problem, I ask myself, what am I going to do about it? What can I do to change the circumstance I'm into? Maybe I need to move to a new job or start a new business. Maybe I need to change my living condition. Maybe I need to change something about my health. I always think there's something that I can do. What can I do? And what am I going to do about it? But right now, I'd like to talk about 400 years of racism in this country and the caste system. So I ask myself that same question. What am I going to do about it? How can I create change? I mean, after all, I'm just one person. What can I do? But I did ask myself that question. So the first thing I did is I started to educate myself. I read every book I can get my hands on about the subject, and I still read every book I can on the subject to learn more about this country's history and how it was founded and how it was built and all of that. And I gained quite a bit of knowledge. And I figured that, well, what can I do? What can I do about it? So I thought to myself, maybe, I write poetry. So I said, maybe if I wrote some poetry on the topic, people might listen because this is a topic people don't want to speak about. They don't want to talk about it. And sometimes I don't even want to talk about it. And I'm so happy that Jill and I have a show together. I'm right, I'm right. So I did decide to write a book, and I did write a book of poetry on this subject. So then I thought, well, what am I going to do with the book? It's not published yet. It's not out anywhere where people can buy it, and I did want people to hear it, hear the poems. So that's why I created this show. Maybe you'll listen. Maybe you'll be entertained a little bit, maybe not, but I would be getting the word out. So I go back to what can I do about the situation? What can I do to create some change? And what can any of us do to create some change in this country? Well, we can protest. We can make donations to the ACLU or the NAACP. Really, there's a lot of things we can do to help create some change in this country. But through my research and touching, let me see, getting into the spiritual side of myself, uh, I learned that we, and I'm including myself, have so many biases, so many. For instance, like people in Georgia, and this is true, but people in Georgia talk bad about people in Alabama. And then you have people in New York talk bad about people in New Jersey. And there's rich people that talk really bad about poor people. There are highly educated people that talk really bad about poor people, and so on and so on and so on. So, what we have to do is change our thought process. We need to change how we see other people. We need to change how we see our fellow human beings. And we need to catch ourselves when we notice that we are judging someone else or a group of people just because they're different. It's the only reason. Some people don't like people with big feet. It can people and all of us, and I'm including myself, will find some reason to view someone as different. So we really do need to learn how to see our fellow human beings in a different way. And the other thing I learned was love. All of you hear me talk about love, love, love. I'm always talking about love, and you may get tired of hearing me say love, 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 but that's what it is. If you love someone, hopefully you will not try to tear them down. If you love someone, you won't talk negatively about them. If you love someone, you'll be in their corner. And these are the things we need to do. These how we're going to start seeing other people differently, people that aren't just like us, and whoever us is. We really need to learn how to see everyone differently and catch ourselves when we're judging someone because of their circumstance or because of their skin color or because they speak a different language or come from a different country. We really need to identify that. So for me, what am I going to do about it? I'm going to love, and I'm going to love myself. So the way I see it, if we do this, the world will begin to change. It's not going to happen overnight. It may take another 100 years. But if we think about this together and act together and support each other and love each other, things can be a lot better. So it's just love. Love. And it's so easy. And yet it's so hard too. It's hard to love someone that you don't really know. But the more you do it, the more you say it, the more you believe it, the easier it is to do. So that's all I got to say on that subject. That's it. Action. Taking action is what we need to do. And if anybody wants to chime in, you can request to speak. You can just hit the speaker button that you see with the plus sign. You can hit that and we will receive your request. Or you can go to the little hamburger on the lower left-hand corner and press it and then request to speak. And then we will let you right on in and comment, because I love comments and I love to have conversations about this. And again, this is a loving place. So any question you want to ask, whatever you feel, you can freely talk about it here. All right. Now, I'll get to the poem for the night. For tonight, it's They Say. It's called They Say. And as usual, in this poem, I also refer to the blue and white eyes. And for those of you that don't know, in my manuscript, excuse me, I call the blue and white eyes some of the people with white skin, the people that believe the European blood makes them pure, blue blood running through their veins, better and supreme than anyone with color in their skin. They believe the darker person's skin, the more they become less than, seen through white eyes, seen through the privilege of, and all of that. You know that. Okay, so I'll stop right there. So, and then I also want to talk about decent white lives, which are decent people, just decent Caucasian people. They're just trying to go through their life, do their jobs, just be good people. They don't hate someone because they have a different color than them. They don't hate another person because they come from another color. They don't hate a person because they're gay. They're just decent people. So tonight, it's going to be They Say. This is the poem I'm going to do. And when I say they say, I am talking about the blue and white eyes. So let's get started with this poem. They say, today there is no racism, just a thing of the past. They say, systemic racism and privilege for white skin is all in our heads. They say, forget the past, live in the present, look ahead to your future. But our future's under ceilings of glass made from blue and white eyes. We try every day to break through ceilings and bust down doors, but we're shackled to floors, can't reach locked doors or rise through ceilings. when we're dealing and feeling and living and dying and crying and living and dying from a system feeding on us and feeds itself with buckets of pandemic systemic racism, true red, white, and blue, eating us from inside to out. Parasites draining black souls dry while we try to survive a system infected with systemic racism, where systemic racism hides their elaborate system, where blue and white eyes control our lives, where we live and die, locked out and locked in, living in a system controlled by them. A system controlled by them. All right, that's it. That's a quick one. Cool. Thank you for the applause. I appreciate it. Again, I would like to call anyone up that wants to make a comment or come to the stage. And I will check with my producer because I'm not seeing everyone. So, Jill, my producer, do we have anyone that wants to make a comment or a question?
We don't yet.
Okay. So in that case, I will just get to it to go through this poem a little bit. And again, as I discuss this particular poem, um, if you do have a comment, please don't haste. Please don't. I can't say hasten. I can't speak tonight. Well,
Hesitate.
oh, is that what I was going to say? Hesitate?
Yes, please don't
Oh, please don't
hesitate.
hesitate. Wow. Wow. Thank you, Jill.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, please don't hesitate to ask a question and we'll be good. So again, throughout this poem, I say, they say. As I said earlier, they say are the blue and white eyes. Because there's people always saying that blacks in America need to stop complaining. Just need to stop. Why, they always say, why are you complaining? You have a good life. You have a home. You have a job. You have a car. Why are you complaining? Well, the reason we do still complain is because we're still faced with discrimination. Discrimination when we go to buy a house, discrimination when we go to school, discrimination when we go for a job, discrimination when we're in the grocery store. Like, for instance, and I know this has happened, it's happened to me and it's happened to many other people that I know. We can go to a store, let's say the grocery store, and we buy our groceries and we take it out to our car. And we're done. Maybe we carried our groceries out to the car. We didn't bring a shopping cart because we only had a few bags. So we carry our groceries. And then we'll get out our car, then we're at a car, we put our groceries in the car, and then a Caucasian person may walk up to us and say, "Take my cart back. Will you take my cart back and turn it in?" No. No. You take your cart back and turn it in. And then the person will get an attitude. Well, you should take my card. That's why you people, that's why we don't like you people, because you don't do what we say. Yeah, and if you think this doesn't happen nowadays, it does. It still happens. But through the years, from our parents, from our grandparents, we've always been told, you need to choose your battles. You need to know when to say something and when not to say something. So we may decide just to ignore the person and don't say anything. But we get those types of aggressions quite often, like quite often. And we just a lot of times we just overlook it, go on with our lives because we're just trying to get through our day. And these things, we try to act like they don't stress us, but they really do stress us because every day we're waiting for something to happen. So that's why we keep talking about it. That's why, because it's still happening. So we don't forget the past. We try to live in the present, but other people keep showing us that the past is still here. Now,
Sweetheart, we have a written comment from Really Charlie.
okay. Hey, Charlie. Hey, really, Charlie.
He wrote, "Thank you for being a voice to rejoice, a choice to voice what is truly right."
I like that, Charlie. I think, I think, I think, Charlie, we're gonna have to have you as a guest on my show one day. We'll set it up. I think it'll be a good show. I think it'll be a really good show. And I also want to thank. Oh, I see. You didn't tell me Denise
And Connie
and Giselle were here also. Jill
and Ronaldo.
and Connie and Ronaldo. Cool. Oh, so good to see you all and that you're here. That is fabulous. That is fabulous. Okay, so I'm going to move on a little further through this. So in here, I say, but our future is under ceilings of glass, and that refers to the workplace. Now, I'm sure most people have heard of this before, and we say that there is a glass ceiling in the workplace. So we may be doing a fantastic job at our job, in our profession, and we start moving up and we move up a little bit more. But then we stop moving up. And then we see that people are getting promoted over us that definitely don't have the same skills. They're not doing a job as good as us. The only difference is that they are a different color than us. They are Caucasian. So they keep moving up and we just sit still. So a glass ceiling is still really there. It's still there. We still have this. And it doesn't matter whether you are an employee or you own the business. Even when you own the business, we still have to deal with the blue and white eyes. And if the blue and white eyes decide, oh, I'm not going to patronize that business just because they're African American, no other reason. We may make the best product, we may provide the best service, but there are people that will not use our services just because we are African American, or just because we're gay, or just because we're lesbian, or just because any reason they can find, any reason to show we are not them and we are not as good as them. So that happens within business also. So it doesn't matter in this country whether we're an employee or a business owner. We still face the same thing. It's still keeping us down. So the next line was, we try to break through ceilings every day and bust down doors, but we're shackled to floors because that's what it feels like. All the time, there's somebody trying to keep us from rising up. But the chains that are connected to us keep us from rising because they just want to keep us down. They want to keep us in our place. You'll hear a lot of people a lot of African Americans really understand the phrase, they just want to keep us in place. They want to keep us in place. They want us to stay where we are. They don't want us to say too much or make too much noise. And if we make too many gains, they will definitely do everything in their power, and I'm talking about the blue and white eyes, to tear us down. They will kill us. They will burn down towns. They will burn down churches. They will burn down schools just to keep us in our place. And this is for real. This still happens today. Lynchings still happen today, except they use the police to carry them out. And then there's other lynchings that happen that they don't use the police to carry it out, but the police don't bring any charges against the people that do that. And the few times that we do get justice, I can guarantee you some other bad stuff is going to happen to us because they don't want us to make too much gains. They don't want us to. Um, the next part I will go to is uh, with buckets, a pandemic, systemic racism, true, red, white, and blue. So, what I'm talking about there is that this country was built on slaves' backs. So, free labor. Free labor. Can you imagine if you never had to pay for any of your services? Can you imagine how much money you would save if you went to get your car washed and it was free? Can you imagine what it would be like if you had 100 acres of land and you planted all types of crops all over it and you didn't have to pay for labor? You didn't have to buy a tractor. You didn't have to buy a horse. You just had all this free labor. People, human beings that you enslaved to do your labor. Just think about that. I mean, really think about how easy it is to build wealth when all your labor is free. It's just free. Yeah, let's get those people to do it. Yeah, that's free. But in enslaving people to do your free labor and then use them in any way you see fit. Can you imagine what it would be like? Can you imagine what it to be like? What it would be like to be a person that owns slaves? How would you handle that? Myself, I wouldn't have slaves. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. It's just an awful, awful thing. And that's what this country did. That's how this country was built. Even uh, and after 1865, we were supposed to get what they called 40 acres and a mule. And they did give it, and I've mentioned that before on this show. They did give it, but I think it was 6 months or a year later, they just took it all back. Took it all back and gave the former slaves a a chance to become sharecroppers. And being a sharecropper, you barely made enough money to get by. And the former slave owners were always cheating the sharecroppers. So, another way to keep people down. And this country still does it, unfortunately. This country still does it. It's in place. It's what happens. It's why there are black neighborhoods and black schools. That's why. That's why there are so many ghettos. This is where they want us to be. And we're there because we weren't able to make enough money to get beyond that. Uh, Even the GI Bill after World War II, none, none of the black soldiers were able to get a GI Bill. None. Not at all. You know, where I grew up in Long Island, New York, there were these small houses that they built, and they were called Levitts. And because they started building them in Levertown for the soldiers after World War II, built whole communities. And the houses sold for $2,000. $2,000. This was back in like 58, a little before 58, $2,000 for a two-bedroom house, um, and soldiers could get them. That took so many white soldiers from renters to homeowners. And then they would also take, after they bought the house, they would like put a second story on the house. So now they have a 4-bedroom house. And they were able to do that very cheaply also. But no black soldiers were able to get those mortgages in Levittown. Wouldn't do it. Wouldn't happen. So we're talking, 70 years ago. 70 years ago. So the soldiers that got out that were building wealth, were building equity in their homes, while black soldiers were not. And it's generational. So they don't have anything to leave to their children. Their children can't build on that wealth, on that equity that was in the family home. They can't do it. And also the GI Bill had lower interest rates. So the interest rates were cheap, cheap, cheap. So it gave them a head up, a hand up, gave them a way to better themselves, to be in a better community. But these things, they made sure black soldiers did not get it. So when I say buckets and pandemic, systemic racism, that's how I feel it's doled out to us since before I was born. It's there. I'm 63 years old and it's still there. I still have to deal with it. And so the next line in there is eating us from inside to out, parasites draining black souls dry. Now, in this case, I'm talking about the stress and the health issues that African Americans have in this country. We have high blood pressure, we have high cholesterol, we're under stress all the time. In general, the food that we grow up on, a lot of it is the same food we ate when our ancestors were slaves. And the sad thing about it is our ancestors made the food taste good. Talk about chitlins. Now, I don't like chitlins, but I know a lot of people that love chitlins. And those are pig intestines. It's where all the crap ran through. This is what was left for us to eat. And we still eat them today. You know, my grandmother, when I was young, My grandmother was a very smart woman. This is my mother's mother. She's a very smart woman. She was a business owner for quite some time. She owned a hair salon, and she was very good at her job. She's very good at running her business. But eventually she retired and she just stayed home. But she used to tell us, she says, when you get older and you go to the grocery store to buy your meat, don't buy the meat at the grocery store in your neighborhood. Oh, why not? Grandma, meat is meat. She said, oh no, meat is not meat. She said, I will drive 20 miles out of my way to buy some meat. Well, why is that, Grandma? Because the meat that's in our neighborhood, in our grocery store, a grocery store that has the same name as the grocery store in the white neighborhood, our meat is inferior to the other meat. And I'm thinking to myself, she told us that, and I'm just a little kid, but I was still thinking, oh, that's ridiculous. That can't be. It's the same chain of grocery stores. In New York where I grew up, it was ShopRite. It was called ShopRite. That was like the favorite grocery store for people to go to. And I'm thinking, nah, that can't be true. That can't be true. Yeah, my grandmother's just talking. What does she know? I didn't figure that out till I was an adult and started going to the grocery store. So when I lived in a black neighborhood, I'd go to the grocery store and I would buy some steak and I'd take the steak home and cook it. And the steak never was good. It was always tough, always tough. So I'm thinking, well, I don't know. I start thinking about my grandmother. Well, maybe she was right. So I would drive 15 miles out of my way to go to a grocery store in the white neighborhood, and all the meat was better quality for the same price, by the way. So there's all of these little things that are done to us. It doesn't matter whether it's by one person or by big business. It's done on purpose. When I used to live in a different part of town, and as you know, I was a truck driver. I would go all over the country. And, oh, I'm already at 37 minutes. I said I was gonna keep the show to a half hour, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Don't worry. Um, so I was all over the country, and I got to visit and spend time in many different neighborhoods. And there was a woman I was dating at the time, and she said, "Hey, you wanna go to the movies?" I said, "Okay." So we drove, you know, to where the movie was, but, the movie was sold out. So she said, "What do you wanna do?" I said, "I don't know. Let's just take a walk." So we started walking, and we found a nice restaurant. Not a fast food restaurant, a nice restaurant in walking distance. We just walked over, and we had a nice dinner. And then we went over, left, had dinner, left there, but it was still before the next movie started. "What do you wanna do now?" She says, "I don't know, let's get some ice cream." I'm like, "Okay, cool." Well, we walk just a little bit more, and there's an ice cream parlor. We get some ice cream, and we sit down, and, we're just having a lovely evening. And we say, "Oh, it's about time to go to the movies." So we just walk over to the movies. Now, that doesn't sound like anything special. But up until that point, every neighborhood I lived in all my life was a black neighborhood. And the only thing that's in a black neighborhood is fast food restaurants and a Chinese restaurant. That was all that was there. There were no nice restaurants. You couldn't choose to go to a nice restaurant. Oh my God. Hey, the first time I went to a sit-down restaurant, I was 14 years old and I was in Massachusetts and I grew up in New York. The reason I've never been to a sit-down restaurant until then is because we didn't have any. Even the Chinese restaurant. Now, the Chinese restaurant did have seating. It did have a decent restaurant with a bar and all of that. But guess what? As a family, we never ate in there. And the question is, why not? I start thinking about that later on in life. Why did we never eat in the Chinese restaurant? Well, I realized to sit down in the Chinese restaurant and eat, the prices doubled. So, if you were a black person on a limited budget, there was no way in the world you were going to pay twice the price for Chinese restaurant. So, they were able to keep the black people in the town, in our town, out of the Chinese restaurant because we just couldn't
So,
afford it. Yes, Jill.
um, really, Charlie wrote a comment a while ago when you were explaining the last two lines
Okay.
of your show. He
Okay.
said that we, Fireside, needs a mic drop icon.
Hey, will everybody please give Charlie an applause for that one? That's excellent. Charlie always makes me laugh, and thank you for being here, Charlie, and everyone else that's in the audience.
And really,
Oh,
Charlie Lyric had come into the room as well.
hey, Charlie, like I was thinking about you yesterday and today, and probably the day before too. We'll talk later. Anyway, Um, yeah, so that's some of the things. I'm going over the time I wanted to go this evening. But let me go over real quickly. I'm going to give I'm going to do one more line here and then I'm going to give a spoiler alert. Um so I have the lines here. Uh where systemic racism hides their elaborate system. So, systemic racism, the racism that we live in, is really hiding that we truly live under a racial caste system. And under this caste system, and I think the next show is going to be about the caste system. But under the caste system, it does not matter what a person of color does. We're always marked by our color. We don't have to open our mouths, and people can see us from 50 yards away and know that we're black and know that they're going to treat us differently because of it. So we're very easily identified. So for someone that hates black people, it's real easy to find us. So we need to remember that we are truly living under a racial caste system, and African Americans are on the bottom of that caste system. And then they've put Mexicans right behind us, Honduras right behind us. Anyone that they can exploit nearly as bad, you know, as they exploited slaves in this country. It's the reason why they always get hired. If you're an immigrant, you're always going to find a job because they're going to cheat you. They're not going to pay you what you're worth. They're not going to do it. and then it goes up. Then I'm challenged to try to make a list of the real order of the caste system in this country. And I even started to attempt it one time, but it was insane when you try to add up all the people in this country and which level we're seen at in the caste system. You know, it's the reason black back in the day, some of us would try to pass what we called passing. And passing is trying to pass as a white person in this country. So for a black person, the only way to get out of the caste system or move up the ladder on the caste system was to pass as a white person. And there have been quite a few people that have been successful in it, very successful in it. I'm not one of them, by the way. Never try to pass for white. Okay. All right. So I like laughter. I like laughter. You know, even with this topic, we need to laugh a little bit. We really, really, really do. So once again, I would like, does anyone have a comment? Does anyone want to come to the stage or any questions or anything? I would love to hear from you because that's what makes things better. When someone asks the question that no one wants to answer, that's what makes things better. I'm tongue tied tonight.
You have Giselle on the stage.
Giselle, my friend. Hello, Giselle. How are
Hi.
you
Okay,
today?
how are you guys?
Very good. Very good. How
Good.
are you?
I'm good.
Great.
Uh, I was thinking about, everything you're saying, and I often wonder, when did people realize racism? Like, as a kid, my first time uh, knowing about racism, I was about 8 or 9 years old, and we went to visit a relative in Mississippi. And I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, so Mississippi. Maybe it was a 4 or 5 hour drive or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
my brother and I went into a store, buy some candy, and we put our money on the counter. And the guy threw the change back, and my brother's change fell on the floor. And I said to the man, white dude, "Don't throw my brother's change on the floor." And he said, "You niggers, get out of my store." And
Wow.
so I had to ask my mom. I said, "Well, what does that mean?" You know,
Mm-hmm.
that was my first time ever really, knowing about racism and stuff. And during the 60s, I was young in elementary school and looking at the protests and how the black people were being beaten and whatever. And I was think as a kid, what did we do to those people? Why are they treating us like that?
That's right.
And I'm
That's right.
still asking that same question.
Well, you know what? It's amazing because the story you told about you and your brother in the little store,
Yeah.
um, I don't think I know anybody that I grew up with that that didn't happen to, and I grew up in New York.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about first memories to know racism, well,
Mhm.
I remember, and I can remember this like it was yesterday. So it still affects me. Sometimes it pops in my head, and I don't know why. But there was either a newspaper or a magazine, and I was maybe, I don't know, 6 years old. And I saw this picture, and it was the picture. And again, it was in like a magazine or a newspaper, and it was a city picture. So this picture was taken in the city, in some city. and it was recent. And it was the picture of an African American hanging from a street light.
Mm.
And everybody was just around, just looking, just white people just looking like it was a party.
Picnic
And yeah.
at work.
And I asked my mother, I said, Mom, why? It really hurt me. It really affected me. And I said, Mom, why would they do that to him? Why? What did he do? Why
Yeah.
would they do that to him? And she said they did it because, back then we didn't say black, we said colored or Negro. She said they did it to him because he's colored. And I still couldn't understand. I said, I don't understand, but he what did he do? My mother told me the only thing he did was to be colored. So the white people hung him because they hate colored people. And I still couldn't understand. I said, but what did he do? What did? And she
Right.
had to tell me they hate us. Some, now she didn't say all,
Right.
but she said some white people just hate us. Period. We didn't do anything to them, but they still hate us. But I heard you say picnic. Can you tell us the history of picnic?
I'm not sure of the history, but breaking down the word, it's like pick, PICANIG.
Yes.
See?
Yes, yes. So if I remember correctly, that's what it was about. Pick a N word, pick one to hang. Um, Again, awful, awful, awful. Oh boy. So Giselle, I'm so glad you told that story. And here's the thing. There's one young man that's in the audience, and I think he was in my first show, and I asked him about um, racism in the school he went to as a child, and the deal is he received the same racism that I received in my school from a teacher. His came from a teacher, a white teacher. Mine came from a white teacher. And I'm over 30 years older than him.
Oh, wow.
So it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed all this time. It hasn't changed from my parents' time. It hasn't changed from my grandparents' times. Yes, some things have changed and some things have stayed the same. And I can actually see now that some things are going
Right.
backwards to the way it was 80 years ago, 100 years ago.
Right.
But people don't, for some reason, they don't see it. Again, I don't understand that, but there are people that don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
They say things like, we need to take our country back. So when someone says we need to take our country back, they're talking about taking it back to the way it used to be, where people knew their place, where people didn't say or do things. As long as we remain quiet and stay in our place, we're good. And no problems. But unfortunately, that is not what it's like. And through it all, I still love. I still love people. I still try to give a person a chance. I try to take everyone for face value. And as I said before, I don't hate anyone, even the people that hate me. I still have some love for them. Because if we start hating like they hate, we're never going to move forward. And it's hard for people to see this 400 years of subjugation that we have been under is biblical. You can look it up in the Bible. It's biblical. Now, for one set of people to do this to another set of people for over 400 years now, whatever you believe in, it can't go on forever. That's all I got to say about that. All righty. Giselle, thank you so much for coming up.
Thank you.
I really do appreciate it. I really do love that you share. And I wish more people would come up and share so more people can understand, so they won't be surprised when they see another George Floyd, when they see it happen again. It didn't just happen out of the blue. It's been happening all the time. So I know I said that's all I'm going to say about that like 2 or 3 times. But this time, that is all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to close this show out in less than...
You said you had a spoiler alert?
Yeah, my spoiler alert was that on the next show, I'm probably going to talk about Cass. I'm going to do a poem about Cass. I don't mention Cass in the poem I just did. I called it out as an elaborate system. So that was it.
Okay.
Jill, my producer.
Okay.
That was it in a nutshell. So again, I want to thank everyone for coming, for being in the audience. I know you don't have to be. You could be doing something else with your Saturday night or in your replay. So that's the wrong out music. I finally pressed the wrong button in my show. And I really do appreciate everyone coming. Like I said, you don't have to be here. You don't have to listen to me talk about this tough subject. And nobody really wants to talk about it freely. It's one of the reasons I only do this show every other week. It's rough. So again, I'd like to thank everyone that's here. I'd like to thank Jill, my producer, for taking such good care of me and keeping me on track. I'd like to thank... Hey, listen to that. I'd like to thank the artist that created this music I'm playing now. It's called Choral, and it was made by 29 Beats. The music I played along with They Say is, and check out this, it's called Guitar, Hard Guitar. And it's from Want to Lose. That's an interesting name. So again, I thank everyone, and I really, really, really love you all. So till next time, we'll see you then.